Hello, my friend. Come in, come in. Sit here by the window with me for a little while. The night air is finally cooling down, and the heavy heat of the day is lifting, leaving behind a quiet, gentle breeze. The sun has dipped low behind the great, sprawling walls of the city, and the sky is shifting from a dusty orange into a deep, bruised purple, melting slowly into a soft, velvety black. You can smell the faint, sweet scent of cedarwood from the brazier in the corner, and the distant, earthy smell of the river winding through the valley. I am Daniel. Yes, that Daniel. The one who has somehow outlasted kings and empires. The one who has seen gold kingdoms turn to silver and silver to bronze, while I just kept growing older and, thankfully, a little wiser. People look at me now, an old man with a beard as white as morning frost, and they think I must have some incredible, mystical secret. They ask me, "Daniel, how do you sleep so soundly when the world is constantly shifting under your feet, when the palaces are full of whispers and the world is so incredibly loud?" I usually just smile, a little chuckle rumbling in my chest. If only they knew that the greatest rest I ever found, the deepest, most profound sleep of my entire life, happened in a cold stone pit filled with wild, hungry lions. I know how it sounds. It sounds absolutely absurd. Even to me, after all these years, the memory feels like a vivid, impossible dream painted by God Himself. But it is entirely true. And tonight, as you close your eyes and let the heavy weight of your own day slip away, I want to tell you all about it. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Take a slow, deep breath in with me, filling your lungs with the quiet of the night, and let it out like a gentle, peaceful sigh. It was during the reign of King Darius. He was a Mede, a man of rules and structure, but he had a surprisingly good heart for an emperor. I was an old man even then, set in my ways, moving a little slower, enjoying the quiet moments of the morning before the chaotic business of the kingdom began. The king had appointed 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom and 3 administrators over them. I was one of those 3. I suppose the king saw something in me, an excellent spirit, they called it. But really, it was just the peace of God, steadying my hands and clearing my mind. It is amazing how clearly you can see the world when you are not desperately trying to control it. Because of this, King Darius planned to set me over the whole kingdom. He wanted to give me the highest seat, right beside his own. As you can imagine, in a palace built on ambition and pride, that did not sit well with the others. Jealousy is a restless, exhausting thing. It keeps men awake at night, pacing their floors, grinding their teeth in the dark. The other administrators and the satraps, they could not sleep. They were so busy watching me, trying to find some fault, some error, some hidden scandal in my work. They scoured my ledgers, they listened at my doors, hoping to catch a slip of the tongue or a heavy footstep. But they found nothing. They could find no corruption in me because I was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. My work was simple because my focus was singular. As the great King David once wrote, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." That was my anchor. And because they could find no fault in my work, they decided they would have to find a fault in my faith. They knew I prayed. They knew my routine, the quiet, unshakable rhythm of my days. And so they hatched a plan. A dark, desperate little trap designed to use my devotion against me. but we will get to that. For now, just listen to the wind outside the window. Hear how it rustles the leaves of the date palms, a soft, rhythmic shh, 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 like a lullaby woven into the air itself. Close your eyes, my friend. Sink a little deeper into where you are resting. You are safe here, just as I was safe then. The Palace of Babylon was a place of endless echoes. You could walk down the long, sweeping corridors of polished marble and hear the soft click-clack of sandals long before you saw the person approaching. The air always hung heavy with the scent of crushed myrrh and frankincense, a rich, thick perfume meant to mask the scent of fear and ambition that really ruled those halls. I preferred the smell of the open air, the simple, clean scent of rain on the dust. Those men, the ones who could not sleep for watching me, they went to King Darius as a group. They knew his one weakness, a weakness common to all kings, I suppose. They knew exactly how to stroke his pride. They spoke in soft, rhythmic voices, weaving a tapestry of flattery so dense the king could not see the trap hidden within it. "King Darius, live forever," they said, bowing so low their elaborate curled beards brushed the cold stone floor. They proposed a new law, a royal decree. For 30 days, they suggested, no one in the entire kingdom should be allowed to pray to any god or human being except to the king himself. Anyone who disobeyed would be thrown into the den of lions. It was a foolish law, born of vanity and spite. But to a king, surrounded by men nodding in agreement, it sounded like a lovely tribute to his supreme authority. He did not think of me. He only thought of his own glittering reflection in their praises. With a warm smile, King Darius took the heavy gold signet ring from his finger. He pressed it deeply into the warm red wax, sealing the decree. According to the law of the Medes and Persians, once a decree was signed, it could not be altered, not even by the king himself. The trap was set, its iron jaws waiting patiently in the dark. The news spread through the city like a ripple across a still pond. I was sitting in my chambers when I heard the proclamation read in the streets below, the herald's voice carrying over the sounds of merchants and braying donkeys. Did my heart race? Perhaps, for a fleeting moment. I am only human after all. But then, a deep, familiar stillness washed over me. It is a quietness I have known since I was a young boy in exile. A quietness that gently whispers, "Be still, and know that I am God." I did not argue. I did not run to the palace to plead my case or point out the deception. I simply stood up, my old joints popping softly in the quiet room, and walked out of the government halls. I walked home. The late afternoon sun was painting the mud brick walls of the city in shades of honey and gold. The heat of the day was finally breaking, just as it is right now outside this very window. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. There is no need to rush. No need to worry about the decrees and demands of tomorrow. The world will keep turning, guided by a hand far greater than ours. I reached my house and climbed the stone steps to my upstairs room. This was my sanctuary, my quiet place away from the endless noise of the empire. The windows in this room opened toward Jerusalem, my true home, the home of my heart. 3 times a day, just as I had done my entire life, I knelt on the woven rug. I could feel the rough texture of the wool beneath my knees. I opened the heavy wooden shutters, letting the evening breeze brush against my tired face, and I prayed. I gave thanks to my God, just as I had done before. I did not hide. I did not whisper. I spoke to the Maker of the stars, knowing that He who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. And so, I did not need to lose my own rest to worry. The fading sunlight spilled across the floor of my upper room, warming the ancient, intricate patterns woven into the rug. I knelt there with my eyes closed, the gentle breeze carrying the distant, comforting sounds of the city settling down for the evening. I was speaking to the Lord, completely surrendered to the quiet rhythm of my own breath and His eternal presence. But the quiet was abruptly broken. I heard the scuffling of leather sandals on the stone stairs, the hurried, overlapping whispers of men trying to be stealthy, yet failing entirely. They did not even knock. The heavy wooden door swung open with a loud, sudden creak. There they stood, the administrators and the satraps, their eyes wide with a hungry, desperate sort of triumph. They had found exactly what they were looking for: an old man on his knees, asking for help and giving thanks to his God. I did not stop my prayer. I simply opened my eyes, looked at them standing there in the doorway, and finished my conversation with the Almighty. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? I felt a profound sense of pity for them in that moment. They were so caught up in the temporary power of palaces and kings, completely blind to the eternal power that holds the very stars in place. They rushed away as quickly as they had come, their footsteps echoing down the stairs and spilling out into the street. They were practically tripping over themselves in their haste to get back to King Darius. I stayed on the floor a little longer, feeling the cool evening air dry the light sheen of sweat on my forehead. When they burst into the king's presence, they did not mention my name right away. They were cunning, reminding the king first of his own unchangeable law. "Did you not publish a decree," they asked, "that during these 30 days anyone who prays to any god or human being except to you, your majesty, would be thrown into the lion's den?" King Darius, still blind to their trap, nodded from his high throne. "The decree stands," he replied, his voice echoing in the grand hall, "according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed." Then, with a smug satisfaction that must have turned his stomach, they delivered the blow. "Daniel," they sneered, "who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, your majesty, or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day." I was told later how the color drained from the king's face. He realized instantly how he had been played, how his own vanity had been used to condemn a man he deeply respected. He was greatly distressed. He loved me, you see, in the way a king loves a steady, honest servant who never asks for anything in return. For the rest of the day, as the sun began its slow, inevitable descent toward the horizon, King Darius paced the marble floors of his palace. He summoned his wisest counselors. He pored over ancient scrolls, determined to rescue me. He made every effort until sundown to save me. But the law was the law. A rigid, unbending thing made of ink and wax, holding more power than the man who wore the crown. Allow your own body to feel heavy, just as the sun grew heavy in the sky that evening. Let go of the worries that you cannot control, the unbending rules of the day that have brought you stress. Just breathe, in and out, as we wait for the twilight to fall. The sun finally slipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of indigo and ash. With the setting of the sun, the king's time ran out. The law demanded action, and those men, those restless, scheming men, returned to the king's chambers. They did not come with the gentle step of counselors, but with the heavy, insistent tread of victors. They reminded him once more, as if he could possibly forget. "Remember, your majesty, that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, No decree or edict that the king issues can be changed. King Darius sat heavy on his throne, a man imprisoned by his own golden crown. He gave the order, his voice barely a whisper in the cavernous room, but the guards heard it loud and clear. They came for me, just as the first stars began to pierce the darkening sky. Bright, cold pinpricks of light in the vast canopy above. I did not fight them. There was no need for the clatter of swords or the rough pull of chains. I simply wrapped my thickest woolen cloak around my shoulders, for the desert nights can carry a bitter, biting chill, and I walked with them down the long, torchlit corridors. The flickering flames cast long, dancing shadows against the polished stone walls, making the lions carved into the reliefs look as though they were already leaping from the rock. The palace was unnervingly quiet, as if the very stones were holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen to the old Hebrew exile. But I felt no fear. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. Even as they led me toward a pit of hungry beasts, my soul felt as calm as a glassy lake at dawn. We walked out of the palace and into the cool night air, the royal procession moving in a solemn, heavy silence. King Darius walked beside me, his head bowed, his royal robes dragging softly in the dust. He looked so incredibly tired, carrying the crushing weight of a mistake he could not undo. We reached the mouth of the den. The smell hit me first. A strong, musky odor of wild animals, raw earth, and old bones. A harsh scent that usually strikes terror into the hearts of men. From deep within the shadows of the pit, I could hear the low, rumbling growls, the pacing of heavy paws on the dirt floor, the sound of creatures who had been kept hungry for a moment exactly like this. The guards hesitated, their hands trembling ever so slightly as they held their sputtering torches over the gaping hole. The light from the fire caught the glimmer of amber eyes staring up from the darkness, hungry, unblinking, and wild. But I stepped forward to the edge, looking down into the blackness with a strange sense of peace. King Darius reached out and touched my arm, his hand cold and shaking, heavy with gold rings that suddenly seemed utterly worthless. He looked at me with eyes full of desperate hope and profound sorrow, the face of a ruler who realized he ruled nothing at all. "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you," he whispered, his voice cracking under the strain of his guilt and his grief. It was a prayer from a king who did not know my God, but who desperately wished he did. I turned to him, offering a genuine, gentle smile, and nodded simply. Then, they tied the thick, rough ropes around my waist and began to lower me down. The air grew cooler as I descended, the sounds of the world above growing muffled and distant. Feel yourself sinking down now, deeper and deeper into the warmth of your own bed, letting go of every anxious thought, just as I let go of the world above and descended into the dark. The descent was slow, the rough hemp rope biting slightly through my tunic as the guards lowered me down, foot by foot. The cool evening air of the palace gardens quickly gave way to the damp, heavy atmosphere of the pit. It smelled of old earth, crushed limestone, and the sharp, undeniable scent of apex predators. I could hear them down there, a symphony of low, rumbling growls that vibrated in the soles of my sandals before my feet even touched the floor. The darkness rushed up to meet me, swallowing the dim light from the torches above. My feet finally met the cold, hard ground, scattered with the unseen remnants of those who had been less fortunate than I. As the rope went slack and was quickly pulled back up into the light, I looked up. Above me, the opening of the den was a perfect circle of dark blue twilight, framed by the silhouettes of the guards and the weary king. Then came the sound that was meant to be my death knell, the grinding, heavy scrape of a massive stone being rolled across the opening. It scraped against the rock face, a harsh, grating noise that echoed off the walls of my prison. And then, with a final echoing thud, the sliver of sky was gone. I was plunged into absolute, impenetrable blackness. For a moment, the silence was thicker than the dark. I stood perfectly still, letting my eyes adjust, though there was nothing to see. But I could feel them. I could feel the intense heat radiating from their massive bodies and hear the slow, rhythmic padding of their paws circling me in the dark. Every human instinct screams to run in a moment like that, to panic and fight the shadows. But my spirit felt entirely grounded, as if a warm, heavy blanket had just been draped over my old shoulders. I remembered the words of the prophet Isaiah. "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. And surely, if he is the Lord of the deep waters, he is the Lord of the wild beasts." Suddenly, a soft, golden light began to bloom in the center of the cavern. It was not the harsh, flickering light of a torch, but a steady, gentle glow, like the light of a harvest moon resting directly on the stone floor. In the center of that light stood a figure, tall and radiant, with an expression of profound, unshakable peace. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. The lions, those terrible, starving creatures of muscle and tooth, stopped their circling. I watched, utterly fascinated, as their ears flicked back and their massive heads lowered toward the dusty floor. The vicious snarls that had filled the air just moments before melted away, replaced by a strange, rumbling sound that I can only describe as a purr. It vibrated through the air, pressing against my own ribs, like a deep, resonant cello string being drawn. Allow your own breath to match that slow, steady rhythm, in and out, letting the worries of your day be silenced by the presence of absolute peace. The angel did not draw a sword or shout a royal command. He simply stood between me and the pride, his hand gently resting on the head of the largest male. The great beast leaned into the touch, closing its amber eyes, completely subdued by a power far greater than its own hunger. I watched as one by one, these terrifying hunters sank down onto the cool dirt floor. They curled their massive bodies into circles of golden fur, resting their heavy heads on their huge paws. The pit, which was designed by men to be a place of terror and violence, had been beautifully transformed into a quiet, sleepy sanctuary. It is quite funny when you think about it. The most dangerous place in all of Babylon had just become the safest bedroom in the world. I let out a long, slow breath, feeling the tension leave my old bones completely. I walked over to where the largest lion was resting, his chest rising and falling in a deep, hypnotic rhythm. I sat down beside him on the earth, feeling the incredible, living heat of his body against my side. Relax your own muscles now, sinking into the soft support beneath you, just as I sank into the floor of that den. Have you ever felt the deep, rumbling purr of a cat resting in your lap? Now imagine that sound multiplied, echoing softly off ancient stone walls, vibrating through the very earth beneath you. It was the most extraordinary, hypnotic lullaby I have ever experienced. I leaned my weight back against the flank of the great beast, feeling the thick, coarse texture of his golden mane brushing against my shoulder. The incredible heat of his massive body seeped through my tunic, warming my old, tired bones from the evening chill. The angel remained in the center of the cavern, a silent, radiant sentinel woven from starlight and absolute peace. He did not speak a single word, and he did not need to. His very presence was a heavy, comforting blanket that settled over the entire den, chasing away the damp, fearful atmosphere of the underground pit. I closed my eyes, letting the rhythmic rise and fall of the lion's chest rock me gently into a state of total tranquility. I remember smiling in the dark, thinking of the grand, opulent bedrooms in the palace far above me. Up there, King Darius was lying on sheets of fine woven silk, surrounded by armed guards and every luxury imaginable. Yet he was tossing and turning, completely tormented by his own guilt. His palaces were filled with the finest incense and the softest music, but he could not find a single moment of rest. They say he refused his food that night, sending away the musicians and the entertainers, commanding the entire palace to be perfectly silent. But silence without peace is just an empty room, waiting to be filled with anxiety. He was wide awake, pacing the cold marble floors, while I was beneath the earth, resting perfectly on a bed of dust and sleeping predators. The Lord grants sleep to those he loves, and that night, the lion's den was undeniably the most peaceful bedroom in the entire kingdom. He covers us with his feathers, and under his wings we find refuge. His faithfulness is a protective shield and a sturdy rampart. I did not fear the terror of the night, nor the beasts that surrounded me. I simply let the slow, steady breathing of the lions synchronize completely with my own. Breathe in deeply with me now, feeling your chest expand, filling your lungs with that same quiet, ancient assurance. And exhale slowly, releasing any tension you might still be holding in your jaw, or your shoulders, or your hands. Let them go perfectly loose and heavy against the bed. Just as the great beasts surrendered their wildness to the peaceful presence of the Lord, you can surrender the wild, racing thoughts of your own day. You do not have to figure everything out tonight. You do not have to solve the complicated puzzles of tomorrow. The stone has been rolled over the mouth of the den for the night, shutting out the noise, the demands, and the heavy expectations of the world above. You are safe here in this quiet, gentle glow. The hours of the night passed like a slow, lazy river winding through a silent valley. Sometimes, a lion would shift softly in its sleep, a heavy paw dragging across the dirt, or a deep, sleepy sigh escaping its massive jaws. But they never woke, and their stillness was incredibly contagious. I drifted into a sleep so profound, so entirely dreamless and restorative, that my physical body felt as light as a feather resting on the earth. The deepest part of the night is a quiet, heavy thing, a blanket of stillness that settles over the world. I do not know how many hours passed in that profound, undisturbed peace. My breathing was slow, perfectly matched to the steady, rhythmic rumble of the great beast beside me. There was no fear, no anxiety about the dawn, only the present moment, held safely in the palm of the Almighty. As King David once sang in the desert, "My soul clings to you, your right hand upholds me." I felt that upholding hand more physically in that pit than I ever had in the high halls of Babylon. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the air inside the den began to change. The absolute heavy blackness of the midnight hours gave way to a softer, bruised purple, the very first faint whisper of the coming morning. The temperature dropped, as it always does just before the sun breaks the horizon. A crisp, biting chill that sweeps through the desert. But I was warm, sheltered by the thick, golden fur of my unlikely companions. I could hear the city beginning to stir, far above the thick stone ceiling of my temporary tomb. The faint crow of a rooster, the distant rattle of a wooden cart on cobblestones, the world waking up to a day they assumed I would not see. Let your own mind rest in the quiet between the night and the morning, that peaceful space where nothing is required of you. Just allow the gentle rhythm of your chest rising and falling to anchor you, in and out, slow and steady. Up in the palace, I knew King Darius was already awake, if he had ever truly slept at all. I could almost hear the frantic, heavy pacing of his royal sandals on the marble floor, waiting for the very first ray of light to strike the eastern horizon. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. I knew the king's heart was heavy with sorrow, but I also knew what the morning light was about to reveal. The radiant figure of the angel, who had stood guard through the darkest hours, began to gently fade. He did not leave abruptly. His warm, golden light simply blended into the pale, gray dawn that was now seeping through the tiny cracks around the massive stone above. The lions stirred beside me, shifting their enormous weight, stretching their heavy paws in the dust. One of them let out a wide, lazy yawn, showing teeth that could have crushed iron, but were now as harmless as polished river stones. I patted the thick, muscular shoulder of the beast nearest to me, feeling a strange, lingering affection for these wild creatures. They had been instruments of terror to the world, but to me, they had been a living, breathing testament to the gentle power of God. Then, I heard it. The frantic, hurried footsteps of men running across the dirt above, and following closely behind, the loud, desperate voice of a king who could not wait a single second longer for the sun to fully rise. The king's voice came filtering down through the heavy, damp air of the den, trembling and thick with a night full of tears. It was an anguished, desperate sound that broke the gentle, sleepy quiet of the morning. "Daniel, servant of the living God," he cried out, his voice cracking against the cold stone. "Has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" I smiled then, a slow, deep smile that crinkled the corners of my tired eyes. I took a deep, steadying breath of that cool morning air, feeling the massive chest of the lion beside me rise and fall one last time before I finally stood up. I brushed the loose, ancient dust from my tunic, feeling perfectly rested, completely whole, and wonderfully alive. There was no rush to answer, just a moment to savor the profound, quiet faithfulness of the Almighty. When I finally spoke, I kept my voice incredibly calm and steady, a sharp, soothing contrast to the panic echoing from above. "May the king live forever," I called out, my words echoing softly off the limestone walls. "My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty." I heard a sharp, sudden gasp from the surface, followed instantly by a shout of absolute, unbridled joy. The king was weeping again, but this time, the tears were washing away the heavy, suffocating guilt of the previous day. He began barking orders with a frantic, joyous energy, commanding his royal guards to move the stone immediately. I could hear the heavy wooden levers sliding into place, the straining grunts of the soldiers as they threw their weight against the massive rock. With a loud, grinding scrape, the stone began to roll back, inch by slow, agonizing inch. The tiny sliver of pale morning light widened into a blinding, glorious beam of pure, radiant gold. It poured down into the pit like a waterfall of warmth, illuminating the thick, golden coats of the lions, who were now blinking lazily in the sudden brightness. Let the gentle warmth of that morning light wash over you right now, starting at the very crown of your head and flowing slowly down to your toes. Feel it relaxing every single muscle, melting away any lingering shadows or heavy thoughts from yesterday. The light always returns, my friend, no matter how incredibly dark the night may seem. They lowered the thick, rough ropes down to me once more, the hemp unspooling with a soft, rhythmic shh, shh, shh sound. But this time, I was not descending into the unknown darkness. I was rising toward the dawn. I tied the heavy rope securely around my waist, giving it a firm, confident tug. The guards above began to pull, their movements hurried and eager, desperate to bring me back to the land of the living. My feet slowly left the sandy floor of the den, leaving behind the giant, dusty paw prints of the beasts who had been my quiet protectors. I looked down one last time as I ascended, watching the great cat stretch out fully in the warm sunbeams, completely content and entirely at peace. As I broke the surface, the crisp, clean air of the royal gardens brushed against my face, smelling sweetly of morning dew and blooming jasmine. The contrast was magnificent, a deep, sensory reminder of the beautiful, vibrant world God has created for us to dwell in. Take a slow breath in, imagining that fresh, floral air filling your own lungs, clear and life-giving. Exhale, letting out any stale energy or worry, breathing out the night and breathing in the promise of a new day. King Darius was standing right at the edge, his royal robes severely wrinkled, his face pale and lined with utter exhaustion, but his eyes shining with profound relief. He reached out with trembling hands, pulling me the rest of the way over the stone lip himself, caring absolutely nothing for his dignity or his heavy golden crown. He embraced me tightly, an old king holding on to an older servant, both of us entirely humbled by the staggering reality of a God who saves. The king held me by the shoulders, his eyes scanning every inch of my old, wrinkled frame. He was looking desperately for the tear of a claw, the bruise of a heavy paw, or the scent of blood. But there was nothing to be found, not a single scratch, not a torn thread on my tunic. I smelled only of the damp, cool earth and the fresh morning dew. The royal physicians rushed forward with their clean linens and their fragrant ointments, but I gently waved them away with a tired, happy smile. I was completely unharmed, simply because I had trusted in my God. The king laughed out loud, a booming, joyous sound that echoed through the quiet garden, startling a flock of white doves from the branches of the cypress trees. It was the sound of a heavy burden finally being lifted, a sound you should allow yourself to feel right now. Let the weight of your own responsibilities slip off your shoulders, just as the king's guilt vanished into the morning air. But a king is still a king, and justice in those ancient days was a swift, unbending thing. The men who had plotted against me, those restless, ambitious souls who could not sleep for their own jealousy, they were brought forward by the royal guard. As the ancient proverbs wisely tell us, whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and a stone will come back on him who starts it rolling. We will not dwell on their end tonight, my friend, for this is a time for peace, not for the harsh realities of empires. Let us simply say that the den they maliciously prepared for me became their own, and the lions, so remarkably gentle in the presence of the Lord, remembered their wild nature the moment his restraining grace was lifted. Let your mind release any lingering thoughts of conflict, of wrongs that need righting, or of battles you feel you must fight tomorrow. Leave all justice and all outcomes in the capable hands of the Almighty, and let your own heart be wonderfully light. King Darius, forever changed by the quiet, undeniable miracle of that night, returned to his grand throne room. He did not go to rule with an iron fist, but to write with a humbled heart. He drafted a new decree, sending it out to all the peoples, nations, and men of every language who lived throughout the land. "Peace be multiplied to you," he wrote, his voice echoing the very peace he had witnessed in my own life. "I decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed, his dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." Those beautiful, true words, copied onto parchment and carried by swift riders across the vast, rolling deserts, brought a deep, abiding quiet to my soul. I walked back to my own home that morning, the bustling streets of Babylon looking entirely different in the golden sunlight. The towering monuments to human pride suddenly looked so incredibly small, and the vast blue sky above seemed closer, more vibrant, more alive. The very stones beneath my sandals seemed to sing with the hidden presence of the Lord. Just as you are resting right now, perfectly safe in the knowledge that the exact same God who shut the mouths of the lions is watching closely over you. You do not need to carry the heavy, exhausting weight of the world, for he holds the entire universe together with a single word. Breathe in deeply with me one more time, feeling the cool, clean air fill you with absolute peace, and let it out with a soft, gentle sigh. I walked up those familiar stone steps to my upper room, the very same room where the royal guards had found me praying just the day before. The heavy wooden shutters were still open to the morning sun, pointing faithfully toward Jerusalem. I knelt down on the woven rug, feeling the rough wool beneath my knees once more. But this time, I was not asking for strength to face the lions. I was pouring out a heart completely overflowing with quiet gratitude. The Lord had been my shepherd in the darkest valley, just as King David promised long ago. He had prepared a table for me in the presence of my enemies, or in my case, a perfectly peaceful bed in the presence of apex predators. My cup truly was overflowing with his goodness. And as I finished my prayer, the sheer, beautiful exhaustion of the night finally washed over my old bones. I lay down right there on my own bed, the simple linens smelling of dried lavender and warm sunshine. I closed my eyes, the golden light of the morning filtering through my eyelids, painting my vision in soft, comforting hues. I want you to feel that same golden warmth right now, settling softly over your eyes, relaxing your forehead, and smoothing away any tiny lines of worry. Let your jaw fall slightly slack. Let your neck release its heavy hold, and feel your shoulders sink deeply into your mattress. You are safe. You are so incredibly safe. The very same angels that stood guard in the damp, dark earth of Babylon are watching over your room tonight. He will command his angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. So there is absolutely nothing left for you to do, no battles to fight, no decrees to worry over, and no lions to face. The heavy stone has been rolled away, and the light has conquered the dark. As the ancient wisdom of Proverbs reminds us, when you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Let your breathing become as slow and steady as a sleeping lion, a deep, rhythmic rise and fall, completely at peace in the presence of the Almighty. Drift now, away from the waking world, down into the quiet, still waters of rest. I prospered during the reign of Darius, and later during the reign of Cyrus the Persian, living out my days in the quiet confidence of a man who knows exactly who holds tomorrow. But my greatest resting place was never a palace. It was simply in the palm of his mighty hand. Good night, my friend. May the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, guard your heart and your mind as you sleep. Rest now, deeply and beautifully, until the gentle morning light.